Hi there, here is Christina from Changing Parenting. So, first of all, I want to say your child is not, they don't have to be grateful for existing. They don't have to be grateful that there is, that you're providing them. They don't have to be grateful to you for providing them with food, electricity, and water, because, of course, that's part of being a parent and that's basic needs for living. And of course, you shouldn't be expecting your child to be grateful to you for existing, right? So that's definitely a wrong thought. But if you're watching this video, then I'm sure that's not something you worry about. But recently I had a mom that she was struggling with the fact that her child, for instance, would be very wasteful. So they would go to the playground. She would give to a park, to a fun park. She would give him coins. He would put the coin, be there for 30 seconds, and leave to the next one. So he didn't really value money, and it was generally just like he would ruin a toy, just throw the toy in the garbage and be like, "Mommy, I want a new one," and she needed help with it. So this video is about that. So it's not about getting your child to be grateful to you for existing or for you to give them electricity. It's about helping your child feel the sense of gratitude, because studies show that gratitude is really important to feel like we are happy in life. So here are some things that you can do generally to help your child with this sense of gratitude in life. So one thing that I recommend every single person to do, it's a great habit to give to your child since they are little, but also for you as a grown-up. Every single person, this is really important. It's really good for yourself also as a mom, because very often we go to bed feeling like thinking about the bad things we did, right, instead of the good ones. So practicing gratitude is really a great daily practice for both children and adults. And what to do, how you help your child with this going to bed, is just think about 3 things that were great today, that we are grateful for, right? So what are you grateful for today? What were good things that happened to you today? You met that friend and they played with you and that was so much fun. So I'm grateful that little John was at the playground and that I was able to play with him and I had so much fun. What else am I grateful for? I'm grateful that Daddy could leave work earlier today and I got to play with him a little bit more. And what else? I'm grateful that the day in the kindergarten was good, that I had fun in the kindergarten. So these are little things, every single day thinking of 3 things they are grateful for, right? So, and there are always things to be grateful for, right? But you cannot expect a 4-year-old to be grateful for having electricity, right? You can, for instance, let's say, there's a blackout, there's no electricity, you were without electricity for a while, maybe your child was a bit bored, and it's actually a great thing to teach our children to find, to turn those things into like, something fun, right? It's so much fun. Like now we can, turn on our flashlight and do a scavenger hunt and, things like that. But in that case, for instance, then you can make it about electricity, right? I'm grateful that there was a blackout and we got to play a scavenger hunt. And then I'm grateful that the electricity came back up and I was able to, have light so I could build my Legos even though it was night. But on a normal day, right, you cannot be like, I'm grateful I have electricity, I'm grateful I have a bed, I'm grateful I have food. This is something you as a grown-up, your brain is able to comprehend, and that's something that of course you can say. Although I strongly recommend when you are doing your own personal practice that you focus on the things you are really grateful for. Maybe you are really grateful to have a bed because you didn't have one growing up. That's okay, but don't just say things just to say, right? Think about it. Like, I'm grateful, and as a mom, one thing that I suggest you do is, instead of just being like, I'm grateful that I have a roof over my head, just be like, to what things that you did well as a mom, right? Because as moms, very often we need this positive reinforcement in our brains so that we focus on the things we do well as parents instead of the things we do wrong. because unfortunately most people struggle with that. Our brain focus a lot on the negative, and when you are focusing on the negative, you are not being the parent you want to be, because you are, acting out of fear of doing things, of hurting your child somehow or damaging them, so you end up giving in to your child, or maybe you swallow in self-guilt and just end up neglecting your child, and you don't, instead of playing with them or apologizing to them, you're just like, oh, I suck anyway, tomorrow I try again, right? So it's really important we train our brains to be positive, and I have many videos on this. This is not this one, so I'm going a bit off tangent here. So one thing you can help your child is every day think of 3 things that I'm grateful for. The other thing you can do, and again, I specialize in ages 3 to 6, so these tips are more for that age group. One thing you can do is you can start teaching them the value of money. And I have some videos on this where I explain, for instance, what you can do, the number of digits. So for instance, when you go to a store and you want to let them buy a toy, you can say you can only buy a toy that only has 3 digits. So 1, then a comma, and 2 digits. This means it will be less than 10 euros, for instance. When they start learning the numbers, so a 4 or 5-year-old, 6-year-old, then you can already really start showing them. So this is what is the number that is written here. This number is higher than that number, and you can start giving them not really an allowance per se, but you can do so. For instance, that every month you can buy, for instance, let's say 1 toy, right? That's their allowance. You can buy 1 toy. So if you ruin your toy now, you will only be able to buy 1 more toy, right? So it gives them this value that if I ruin my toys, I will not be able to replace them at the same rate that I'm ruining them if I ruin 1 every day, So this is one example of things you can do. If you want to start giving them an allowance, you can also do that if that's something you're comfortable with. But you have to remember that children ages 3 to 6, they are still learning this process of self-control, and they are still very impulsive. So if you do want to start already giving them an allowance, you have to also be ready for them to just decide to use all their money on candy, right? Because again, they are still learning this concept of impulse control, and their brain is still not developed enough that you can expect them to save, which means, and again, all children are different. There are many, for instance, when I was a kid, as a 4-year-old, I was already saving, right? When I went but again, it's my personality. Each person is different, right? There are children that even older, even when they are in their teens, they will still struggle with impulse control. There are adults that still struggle with impulse control. But so you don't have to start already when a 3 to 6-year-old to give an allowance. But if your child is already, in that stage where they would be able to have an allowance, then you can also do that. This is the amount you're saving, and now every month, you can either save more for next month, you have more. So they start having this, understanding of the value of things. If you don't want to give an allowance, you can anyway explain that, when your child, for instance, breaks a toy, you can say, look, and the child says, I broke a toy, now I want a new one. You can explain, we don't have money to buy you a new one because we only have a limited amount of money, and we need to buy food, we need to do this and that and that. And then you can give them choices. For instance, do you want to go, so your child says, I want to go to the indoor playground. And you can say, okay, if we go today to the indoor playground, then tomorrow we won't be able to do this that you wanted to do, so that they find this, that they need to have choices. The same as, for instance, when you go with them to a store and you want to buy them something, and they start saying they want everything, you can tell them, like, this costs as much as this, but costs double as this, or you can just say you can only choose one thing. So these are ways that you can teach children to value stuff and to be grateful for stuff in a way that is age appropriate. If you want tips for your specific situation, leave me a comment or drop me a DM, and I'll share some tips to help you.